Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today NFL wire site that covers the Arizona Cardinals. And with me, my co-host, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, as we record episode 661, our second show of the week, as we get to react to the schedule release that was on Wednesday, and then we will dive into some predictions, Seth. But, you know, I guess we have to start off by saying that, well, as dumb as mock schedule predictions are, you know, we had a pretty good idea of how things were going to go. There were a couple of surprises, obviously, not being at home in week 18. But, you know, you and I both had them playing the Rams in week 18, but we both had them at home, and they'll be playing the Rams on the road. And, you know, as mock schedules go, I had a good prediction as I hit on week 3, week 4, week 8, and week 11. So 4 correct predictions. Not that earns me anything whatsoever, because we were just guessing. This is not even like the draft where there's anything to evaluate. This is just basically I could have had AI give me the schedule, and I could have done that myself. But
I know, right?
But my goodness, I guess the first thing we can talk about is the new thing around the league is to try to one up all the other teams on their schedule release, like their release video. Because the Chargers have been doing a really good job the last couple of years, and we had a chat about this in the group thread that we've got, our group text. The Cardinals using Mack Wilson writing a song for the schedule release. It is one part cool, and at the same time, you remember making fetch happen? They were trying to make fetch happen. It was cool. I liked it in terms of Mack. That's really cool that Mack Wilson can do that. It did not resonate with me in the least. And it felt like, didn't it feel like the Cardinals were just trying too hard with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things too. Like it was odd in that, like even the Bills one, I was kind of like, you're not telling me your schedule. Like you eventually get there, right? But like the whole point of like what the Chargers do, right, is and honestly the deleted Indianapolis Colts one, it's fun because like you get the schedule in a fun way, yes, as opposed to getting this, like getting a presentation and then getting the schedule at the end. And so for what Mack Wilson did, I have no problem, issues, concerns, anything like that. But
and good for him. That's something right that, you know, I can't do.
But I don't feel like it delivered the schedule in an impactful, fun way.
And like the fact that Ian Rappaport was on the Pat McAfee show the day before, and he said he got this text from a solid source saying that the Cardinals schedule release video is going to be a banger. That wasn't just any source. That was our buddy Mark Dalton hyping, making fetch happen, basically. Right. Making fetch happening. Making fetch happen there, and like what did someone say? Nothing like the Cardinals to hype up mid. I don't want to diminish what the production value or the talent with which Mack Wilson rocket ship performed that. It just like that music doesn't resonate with me at all, so it didn't do anything for me. And I thought initially that the song lyrics would tell us the schedule, and it was
right,
just
that's That's
it was
what I
a song,
thinking,
and then
too.
at the very end, they're just like, "Here's the schedule." But yeah, cool. Cool production. It looks awesome. Then there was a follow-up track, and so yeah, y'all can go listen to that. But I'll be honest, the Chargers was great. The Jets with the the zoom in art, I thought that was really really cool. Just in terms of the artistic way, the way you have to backwards do things like zoom ins, or I honestly I don't know how you do it, but it was really cool that you kept zooming in further, and it just revealed one more week of the schedule. I thought Allen Iverson was funny. I thought the whole thing with the Bills was funny. And he just like, here's the schedule, and it's just on a piece of paper. I thought that was funny. I thought that was better than what the Cardinals did. But overall, like Brenda Song for the Rams, also that was a nice bit. But yeah, and so the Cardinals, being Cardinals, trying a little bit too hard for something that wasn't nearly as cool. Like if you can be cool, or you can just stick to being weird and different and old. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm like, come up with something better, guys. Something funnier. I prefer funny. Like that's the fun part. Is like what the Chargers do every year is that they're funny, or the ones the Titans did when they had the people on the streets, just interviewing people, trying to have them say what the name of the teams are, and
right.
And just
those
the random
funny.
Those are hilarious. Yeah. I like hilarious. Like don't make the schedule at least too serious, man.
Right.
Now the question of the matter now is, were there any real surprises for you?
On the schedule itself, it was interesting to see. It was interesting. I think I ended up having to change my Cowboys Monday Night Football game because I had it, and then I was like, oh, they're not going to play Monday Night Football against the Cowboys the week of Thanksgiving. I forgot about the dates always throw me off. So, I knew that would probably be the one, and again, not because of the Cardinals, but because of the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
But I was surprised to see how they ended up with, another back east cold game, right? They had one 2 years ago when they played the Eagles, and we were just like,
I think it's obligatory. I think
right.
It's an obligatory. Well, and where didn't they have one this last year that could have been? Oh, the New England game. The New England game.
Yes.
No,
it was Carolina.
No, Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you look at it and you go, come on, let's get those ones. Like Houston is fine, right? But if you flop Cincy and Indy, there's really nothing to this. Like nothing really changes, right? Like
maybe the league wants to do that. They want to give everyone potentially a cold weather game to be fair or something. I don't know if that goes into I don't know if that goes to the algorithm or anything, but that'd be weird. But yeah, so Dallas as a Monday night game was an easy pick because of the Kyler connection that they've had that matchup before. In terms of everything else, the two primetime games, getting the Seahawks early, getting two primetime games was nice, and went with the opportunity to get another one because their Cardinals, the game that they have in week 17 against the Bengals is one of a pool of 5 games that will be considered for a Saturday game, just like the Cardinals ended up. We forgot that last year their only primetime game was not just the Chargers game. They got flexed into primetime with the Rams for that Saturday game. And my guess is, looking at those 5 games, that the Cardinals have one of the Cardinals Bengals is probably one of the 2 most likely games to be put on Saturday, because both teams could be very well be in the mix for that. It'll have playoff implications.
And
the other one is the Green Bay game, I think, is the other one that looks like a lock, like the 2 favorites to be the Saturday.
Yeah, and that Bengals Cardinals game could be a lot of fun, right?
Oh, but if both teams are healthy, they both could be in the mix. I mean, that could be a big game potentially. And then, other than that, I mean, it's the schedule.
Yeah,
it's the schedule. which leads us to the next part. So coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web, let's break down the schedule, especially as we have notable things to talk about both at the beginning and the end of the season. That's coming up next on Rise Up C-Red. We're back on the Rise Up C-Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. Seth, doesn't it feel like that? Well, last year we talked about the brutal stretch of games at the beginning of the year and how things even sort of eased up late. This is the exact opposite. They have a really winnable start to the season, and the final 6 games, I mean, it's not like the Cowboys. Like, what is it? The Cowboys that play their final 5 weeks. Their final 5 games are all against teams who won at least 11 games last year.
Right.
It's not that, but it's close. It's close.
But it's also one of those things too, like the Cardinals, maybe this should have been discussed in the oddity just a touch more. It's odd that they get done with both Seattle and San Francisco before they even play the Rams once, right? And their end of season schedule, it's one of those things that you look at and you say Jacksonville, and they genuinely could be awful or they could be good. Yeah. Tampa Bay seems like they're the class of the NFC South, right? Like they have been. But it's not like we're talking about a team that's going deep into the playoffs every year. Like they're a team that
wins the NFC South because the NFC South's not great.
Right. And they have those like long ebbs and flows. If you go back to last season, they were sitting, they had a 4-game losing streak and then followed that up with a 4-game win streak. Right. and so that's kind of their MO is they're good. They're not great by any means. And then you have the Rams, right? And who knows what you get and when you get it with the Rams. The Texans are another one, where you look at it and you go, okay, this team's been in the playoffs, the last 2 years, but last year they were not very impressive. But they just happened to play in one of the worst divisions in football and snuck out a conference championship in that. Now, I will say their beatdown of the Chargers was probably the most impressive thing they did last year. Would you not agree with that? But
100%.
Outside of that, like you were never like, the Falcons are an interesting team. Again, in that NFC South, they're going to go to Michael Penix. It feels like late in the year, they had some really good wins against really bad teams, but they had some losses. They went 2 and 2 and 6. That's what down the stretch, and their losses were to the good teams, and their wins were over the Raiders and the Giants. And you're like, okay, that's not really impressive. But again, a year with Michael Penix Jr., ideally with Michael Penix Jr. and things of that nature, you look at it and you go, okay, so like, we assume the Bengals will be good down the stretch. And to be fair, they were very, very good down the stretch last year. And, that was the classic, well, you can't start like garbage if you want to play. Cause I mean, they rattled off 5 wins in a row, and their 5 wins were not overly impressive teams. I mean, Dallas was bad. Tennessee was obviously terrible. Cleveland was terrible. Their overtime win over Denver was probably their best win. And then they snuck out an ugly fight against the Steelers in that 5-game win streak. But, they were getting hot at the right time type stuff. They just had dug themselves too much of a hole by that point, right?
And they were just a terrible defense. Like everyone is talking about Joe Burrow as a potential MVP, but forget of the fact that, and he did great, but that defense was so bad. I will say this. The Bengals team was one I would have preferred to play early in terms of
100%.
Because they have a new defensive coordinator. They've got a new defensive system. So by the end of the season, they will have figured out their system. And we will know whether that is an improved defense or not. The question is whether Joe Burrow is healthy, because that's kind of been the thing with him is he plays great, and the next year he gets hurt. So we'll see with that. I forgot to actually run down the schedule. I'm sure you listeners have heard this or run across this, in print version or online version. But let's give a real quick rundown of what the actual schedule is. They open the season on the road against the New Orleans Saints, followed by week two when they'll have their home opener, come into town, the Carolina Panthers. Week 3 on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. Week 4, Thursday night football at home versus the Seattle Seahawks. I have a sneaking suspicion that will be the game when we get the new rivalry uniforms that will be released as the NFL is doing. So we'll find out more about that. Week 5 at home against the Tennessee Titans. Week 6 on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. Week 7 at home versus the Green Bay Packers. And then a week 8 bye, after which they will play in Dallas Monday Night Football in week 9, followed by a road game in Seattle in week 10. At home, week 11 against the San Francisco 49ers. Week 12 at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, followed by week 13 in Tampa Bay to play the Bucs. Next week at home versus the Rams. Next week on the road against the Texans. At home against Atlanta, and then closing the season out on the road against Cincinnati and on the road against the Rams to end the year. Wanted to talk about the end and wanted to talk about the beginning of the season. The end of the season, for context, so the final 6 games after that home game against the Jaguars from week 13 and on, their last 6 games, they are on the road for 4 of those. And in those 6 games, they play 3 teams and 4 games, the Bucs, Rams twice, and Texans, who won their division a year ago. And then the other 2, the Falcons and the Bengals, who were in the playoff mix down the stretch. And so that is a really tough, and I wrote that could make or break their season right there. Because if the Cardinals, if they take care of business mostly like they did last year, because they beat bad teams, except for the Panthers, and they lost to good teams. They were the definition of pretty average last year. If they take care of business, they'll be in position to make a run down the stretch. And with this type of schedule at the end, it has the ability to get hot and overcome the narrative that has become their reputation, fading down the stretch. That is something that people have connected to Cliff Kingsbury, but now have tagged it to Kyler Murray in general. They can either beat that strongly, or it will continue to further that narrative. Because, and in terms, we've seen every year teams that enter the playoffs, when they have a tough schedule down the stretch and they play well, they usually carry that in the postseason. So if the Cardinals become a postseason team, how they play down the stretch could help propel them to a playoff win or 2.
Correct. And that's kind of what the focus is, right? You kind of load up in the early season, like you said, 7 games before the bye. You need to be, probably 5-2, at worst 4-3 if you want to be a team that's like looking at the back end of the schedule and going, all right, these final 10 games, we need, if you're at 4-3, we really need to win 6. If you're at 5-2, we probably still want to win 6, but you could probably get away with 5 games. And that's the thing, is like how those 5 wins come kind of define how the season will go, right? Like if that back 10, you go 4-1 to start the back 10 and go 1-4, and you're 5, end up being 5-5, and you go, I don't feel comfortable going into the playoffs, right? But if you start off 2-3, but end up going, end up winning another, even if you started off, 2-4, but you won your last, 3 or 4 games, you're like, okay, we still went 500, but we won the last 3. Like we beat, Atlanta, Cincy, and LA, and got into the playoffs. And that's when you go, oh, okay, yeah, I feel confident, right? That's kind of what you're saying, as opposed to if you're
limping into the playoffs like in 2021.
Right, backing yourself into the playoffs. And so, that's what it's all about.
And then we look at the beginning of the year, and I wrote both of these articles on Thursday. I wrote about the end of the season, how it could that brutal final stretch could make or break your season. Yes. At the same time, then I wrote about the start. While the end of the season will make or break their season, the beginning of the year is also critical, because if they don't start the year taking care of business against an advantageous schedule, then the end of the last 6 weeks won't matter, because you've got games in the first 6 weeks. You have 4 games where they are very winnable. The Saints are supposed to be garbage this year. The Panthers, albeit improved, you're playing them in your home opener, and the Cardinals should be a better team than the Panthers. They play the Titans at home. The Titans should be garbage. The Colts, their quarterback situation tells you everything about it. They don't know whether it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, and neither one of those looks like a good starting quarterback at this point in their quarterback. They are starting quarterbacks, but they do not look like good starting quarterbacks. And then you've got 2 divisional games, and I'm going to beat this drum till the end of time. If you're a playoff team, if you want to be a playoff team, you have to at least hold it. You either have to hold, you would have to win all of your home division games, or steal a road game. You can't go less than 3-3 in your division and expect to make the postseason, and you can't go less than 4-2 and expect to win the division. And so basically I drew it up this way. With their first 6 games, where you go Saints, Panthers, Niners, Seahawks, Titans, Colts, the worst, I think, if you're really going to be a postseason team, especially with the games they have down the stretch, you can't be less than 4-2. You should be 5-1, because you should beat the Saints, Panthers, Titans, and Colts, and then you should win at home against the Seahawks, and then you can afford that loss on the road against the Niners. So you should be 5-1, but say you lose at the Colts. Don't lose to the Saints, don't lose to the Panthers, but the Colts are enigmatic in the fact that, are they good? No, they're not good. And then you're like, wait, are they good? That's how they were last year. 4-2 minimum, in my opinion. If they're not 4-2 to start the year, you're gonna wonder. And maybe they can make that up with if they start 3-3 but win versus Green Bay to go to 4-3. But yeah, you've got to be 4-3 at least heading into the bye, or you really got no chance.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing that they've got to do this year if they want to. Like we said, they got to win in the front half of the schedule. That 4-game stretch, and you can say this about any stretch, let's be honest, but that 4-game stretch coming out of the bye week is going to be big, because again, Dallas is, who knows, right? Should be improved, you would think, right? But still Dallas, and that's Monday night coming off a bye week too, right? Like that's a huge deal. Then you go to Seattle. Seattle should be the worst team in the division, but let's be honest, the Cardinals have never owned Seattle in any way. And then again, San Francisco, Jacksonville, but that 4-game stretch, right? If you go in, let's just say, obviously best case scenario would be 7-0, but let's not get greedy, right? Let's say they're 5-2 going into the bye. That 4-game stretch, that can dictate you at 9-2 if you just run it, which would be a godsend. But you could be 7-4 and feeling good coming out of that, right? Like ideally you split somehow Dallas, Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville. And ideally, if you could go 3-1 in that stretch with only a loss on the road, you're sitting there and you're going, hey, we're 8-3, right? Like this is a great spot to be in for these last 6 games, because that last 6 games, as we talked about, that could be a murderer's row of games, or it could be, the Rams and some teams that are middling based on their division. So that'll be what's really interesting, because you can look at it and go, hey, we can really make some hay in these last 6 games. Or you look at it and go, this is the litmus test, right? The Cardinals go in at 7 wins right there, or, hell, 8 wins right there, and they got 6 games left. Find a way to win 4 of them, you feel great. If you're at 7 wins, still find a way to win, go 4-2, and you're at 11 wins on the season. You're like, okay, this is the direction we expected. 7-4 and those last 6 games, and you go 1-5, or 1-5.
And
it's
then
like
then we're back to, we got to blow it up because they're not progressing. This is the same old Cardinals.
Right.
Coming up next on the Rise of Secret podcast, by our Cardinals talk on the way up. Let's move on to make our game-by-game predictions. Let's come up next. Rise of Secret. We're back on the Rise of Secret podcast, by our Cardinals talk on the web. Seth and I traditionally have been pretty good about reasonable expectations for the season when it comes to game-by-game predictions, and we've come really close each of the last couple of years, within a game or two. Last year, I think we had them. You had them going 9-8. I had them going 8-9, just missing the playoffs. That's exactly how they ended up. The previous year, what I think I had them winning 6 games, and they won 4. So let's do this. I'm gonna go with the basis. This is a better team, and so they will be better than a year ago. And so I'm going to go with the trend. They're moving in the right direction. How do you have them starting off the year on the road against the Saints? Do they stumble out the gate in your case?
No, I think that's a win. I think that's not only a winnable game, but like, you hate to say this about the first game, but you feel kind of must-win game, right? Like, you got to come out and make a point early in the season.
Well, right, and it's the Saints. If you come out and lose to the Saints in week 1, no, there you won't have anyone believing. Like, it's only week 1, and it is a road game. So, and I will say this: often I give home teams and the home team in their opener extra juice when it comes to betting.
1,000%.
But this is a bad Saints team. It's a bad Saints team, and we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. It might be Tyler Shuck. It might be Spencer Rattler. Might be Jake Haener. Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler combined for an 0-7 as starters, and Shuck is a second-round rookie. So
right,
they better win that one. And important, interesting notes, as you pointed out today on X, Twitter, that the Cardinals are favored in week 1. It's the first time they've been favored in the season opener since 2016. Yeesh.
That's wild. That's just so wild.
All right. Week 2. I also have them beating the Saints. I think that, yes, they're going to beat the Saints. Week 2 against the Panthers, a team they've managed to beat once in the last 10 years. Do you have them winning?
Yeah, I think they start 2-0. I think they get out on the right foot this year, and I think that they, kind of start to make some headway as a contending playoff team.
Same. I've got them winning game 2. They start 2-0. Both of us have them going 2-0 to start the year when they go into Santa Clara to take on the San Francisco 49ers on the road. This is where I have them taking a loss. I have a hard time, like, division games, I tend to lean, especially when everyone's competitive, I just tend to lean in the home teams. So I'm going to say the Cardinals suffer their first loss of the year in week 3. They drop to 2-1. How's it go for you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And not just that, but what do we think of San Francisco, right? Like, that's the biggest thing, is we don't really know what we're going to get out of San Francisco yet. So we'll see how it looks, but you want to give a team that, and I saw this crazy stat on Kyle Shanahan today. He either makes the NFC Championship game or doesn't make the playoffs. Like, literally, there's no in between. And so
crazy.
And so, like, it's rare that we get 2 years in a row of them not making the playoffs. So like, but is this the I don't want to say the downfall, but kind of the end of that era, right?
Yeah. Which takes us to the week 4 game on Thursday night against the Seahawks. I have the Cardinals winning that game. It's prime time. It's at home against Seattle. They lost to Seattle twice last year, basically ruined their season. That all they had to do was win one of those games, basically, and they would have been fine. I have them winning that game, holding court, basically winning a home division game. They're staying on track. They're staying on schedule at 3-1.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that it's tough to. I don't want to say see them losing that game, because you can always see them losing a game. But like you said, it's the first home, like it's a big game. It's their first prime time game of the season. Like you want to see this come out in the right way, and I would agree with you that they do.
And which brings us to week 5 at home against the Titans. They better not be losing that game. I've got them winning that, so they improve to 4-1 to start the year. So everyone is going to start buzzing about this Cardinals team being good. Do you have them beating the Titans as well? So they got 4-1.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is the part of the schedule where you look at it and you really think that they should rebound off of that loss and potentially go 3-0.
And which takes us to week 6 on the road against the Colts, where I have them. Initially, I was like, this is a game I could see the Cardinals losing. It's on the road. It's after they've been playing pretty well. That could be a letdown game. But as I kept going through the schedule, it was like, oh, they're going to win all their home games and be terrible on the road. And I think they're going to be better than terrible on the road. I think they're going to be good at home, and I think they're going to be okay on the road. And so they're going to feast on this early part of the schedule. So I've got them improving to 5-1 with a road win over the Colts. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's a win, man. Like I just don't trust the Colts right now.
Yeah, that's a good reason. And then they come home, the game before the bye at home against the Packers. I do have them losing at home. They're going to be their first home loss of the year, getting taken down by the Packers, a team that's supposed to be pretty good, but they head into the bye week at 5-2. They're in a good spot. I'm happy about that. It's just, how does the rest of the season go? How do you see the Packers game going?
I think they lose this one too. So we're kind of in lockstep right now.
We are not doing much to debate each other.
But this is a game. This is a game where it's really like, this is a difficult game. Think about this, right? You come off a 3-game winning streak. You're staring the bye week in the face, knowing that you have Monday Night Football on the other side of the bye in Dallas. That is 1,000% a game that I don't want to say gets overlooked or like, I don't want to use too many of the, little nuanced things, but like, this is a game that, 100% that you just aren't as ready as you should be, and you lose this one. And then, you get to the bye.
And that takes us to Big D in Dallas, where Kyler Murray has never lost ever in his football career, pro, amateur, prep, any of that. Guess what? I have that continuing. Beat the Cowboys. They improve to 6-2 going after that, and then you go into Seattle the next week. Do you see them? Are we still in agreement here? Or they're going to win, or are you going to think the Cowboys are going to take that game?
I think they win. Again, I don't know what to expect from Dallas at this point, but this seems like it could be a statement game and like a nice jumping off point to kind of like make a statement that they're, for real on the back half of this season this year.
Then we head into week 10 against Seattle on the road, and that's where they stumble a little bit. Seattle beats them so the Cardinals end up splitting with the Seahawks on the season series. So I have them dropping at that point to 6-3. What about you?
I actually have them winning this game. So
Ooh.
I think they, like I said, I think that Cowboys win is a catalyst, is a jumping off point for a nice little, I won't spoil it, but they go on a nice little streak here. So I have them taking the win in Seattle, really setting up what should be a nice run.
Okay, so 7-2 Cardinals for Seth, 6-3 Cardinals for me as we come back home for 2 games, the first of which is against the Niners, and I have them getting them back, beating the Niners at home, improving to 7-3. What about you?
Yeah, I think they win this game. I think that, again, I think this is a nice little streak that they go on. So this is 3 in a row for me, puts them at 8-2, and then they go into Jacksonville, or go in, or taking on Jacksonville at home, and carry that over to a 4-game win streak.
Ooh, and I have them beating the Jaguars as well. So you've got them at that point. I've got them at 9-3, and you're at 10-2.
Yep.
Ooh, they will start. This is gonna feel like shades of 2021. Can they hold on?
Right.
Both of us.
And so then I have them week 13 at Tampa Bay. Huge matchup. This is when they start flexing games. I still don't, even 10-2, I still don't think that they would flex this game. Or 9-2, excuse me. But this, we'll see. But I do think that they lose to Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay.
Okay, and I've got them. I've got them stealing that win in Tampa. So we're back. At the we're both now at 9-3. Is it 9-3? Both of us.
Yep.
9-3, both of us, and with 5 games to go. So how do we see the rest of the year going? So they're both 9. The we both, Seth and I, have the Cardinals at 9-3, coming back home to Arizona to face the Rams for the first time. This is where I have the Cardinals faltering. This is where it's going to get a little dicey, because then got that they're 9-3 and they're going to lose, and people are starting to say, "Oh, what's happening?" I've got the Cardinals losing to the Rams at home. What about you?
Yeah, I have them actually winning this one. So they get to 10-3, and they're in a decent spot. And then we'll talk right here.
And then we go to the Texans game on the road. I have them losing this game too. So after they've won 3 in a row for me, they've lost 2 in the row. That takes them to 9-5. 9-5. And I'm assuming you have them faltering here as well.
Yep. So that 10-4 for me, and a game where they are competitive, but a desperate Houston team just outdoes them.
Bringing us to their last home game of the year, the final game at State Farm Stadium for the season, against the Atlanta Falcons. I have them bouncing back from their 2-game losing streak to win, pick up win number 10. They are then at 10-5, beating the Falcons, going to the last two weeks. How do you have the Falcons game going?
I have them winning as well, so that gets them to 11-4, and setting up what could be a huge matchup in Week 17.
Yes, which is the Bengals. I have them losing that game.
I do too, and so this is the caveat that I'm going to throw out about our conversations earlier of getting hot into the playoffs, blah blah blah. The Texans and the Bengals losses I have as competitive, close games. I don't have any, I don't think those are blowouts. And then I think that they, going into the last week, have locked up a wild card only spot, and they're not going to be competing necessarily for jockeying for position. So I think that they lose that Rams game, but we don't see a ton of starters in the full game, if that makes sense.
And I have the Cardinals going into the final week of the season. I see this game potentially determining the division, and I have the Cardinals winning that. So ultimately, do we end up with the same record at 11-6?
Yep, we do.
So we both see them going 11-6. Only I have the Cardinals making the playoffs, but I think they're going to win the division. I think they win the division in this one, with that win over the Rams. Otherwise, sitting in at 10-6, in my case, they might need that win to even make the playoffs, because at 10-7, you're often not guaranteed a playoff spot. So they might need that win in the last week. So it sounds like we both are in agreement. They're going from a 4-win team to an 8-win team to an 11-win playoff team. And if that is the case, that is 100% on schedule for what we want to see from this team.
Exactly. They're getting the right way. They're doing it and they're building it correctly. And just real quick, one other note that we talked about, right? Like, when it comes to these primetime games, there's two things that work, right? Obviously, good teams. So Kansas City being one, Detroit being one, and Kansas City has a pretty ravenous, rabid fan base. Would you not agree?
Oh, 100%. One of the biggest fan bases, and then they've got the Swifties too. They've got all the Swifties.
And then Detroit, though, for a long time was similar to Arizona, and now that they're getting a bunch of these primetime games because they're really good every year, right? And so that's the key. And so when you look at it, it's about either brand or it's about winning. And so you have Kansas City with 7, but Dallas has 6. Dallas has not been exactly a juggernaut every single season. So that's what it boils down to a lot of times. And so if the Cardinals put together an 11-win season and then come back next year and put together a 13-win season and get to the NFC Championship game, or are competing for or contending Super Bowl team, then all of a sudden, and I know people will be like, well, that's 2027. Why would I care? But that's when they'll get 5, 6 primetime games, right? Like that. It's kind of like player contracts, right? You're paying for what he's done, not what, and hoping what he'll continue to do, not necessarily like paying for what he's going to do when they disappoint or whatever else. So that's the whole thing. The Cardinals will have to consistently win to consistently get primetime games. So, going from 1 schedule to 2 schedule, that's actually a nice boost up, right? Like that says like, hey, you're going in the right direction. We'll reward you. And so again, if they go to 11 wins this year, like both of us have them going to, they'll all of a sudden next year it'll be like, hey, now they have 4 playoff game or primetime games. That's fun. So that's what it's all about, right? It's building, it's carrying it over and creating an exciting brand of football to watch consistently when you're not one of the big teams out there.
And it would be so great as a fan for the Cardinals and particularly Kyler Murray to shed the now. Granted, I have them losing 3 of their last 5 games, but if they make the playoffs, survive this end of the season, and then win a playoff game, I think that begins to change. I think people can finally stop the tired narrative of what people keep saying about Murray, can't win the big games, he's too short, blah, 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 falters down the stretch. And all you need is 1 season of doing that to kind of build that reputation back. Like, he was ascending. And the last couple of years, like he was like declining, but now he's kind of just there in the pretty good category. And what we would like for him to show is he is ascending into that top quarterback, where he's he's a top 10 quarterback who's touching into the top 5 or having a top 5 year.
Exactly, and that's what it's kind of all about, right? Like we want to see that growth continue and see them get into a spot where they're competing yearly and they're confident in what they have in-house.
And with that wraps up this edition of the Rise Up C-Red podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. We will kind of put things on hold for a little bit unless something is coming up. We've got busy weeks next week, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll kind of reset what we're doing. I'll tentatively say that Seth and I will probably not do a show next week. I might do my story time show on my own to tell that story. And then after that, we'll see what happens then, because the Cardinals will be in OTAs. There might be some new storylines in that. But until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up C-Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise Up Red C, be Red C-Red, and of course, Rise Up C-Red.
Roll!